Our sixth presenter, starting off the second half of the evening, is Bethany Haeseler. She's a sculptor and glass artist, but now focuses on performance art and her work with hard candy and sugar art. Bethany's mom says that from the moment she could pick up a crayon, Bethany has viewed everything in her line of sight as something she can transform into an object of art. It sounds to me like we should also celebrate Bethany's mother's patience. Her mother also says, though, that Bethany is a fine artist in her own right whose destiny... Bethany is a fine artist in her own right whose destiny and indeed whose calling is to teach other artists. To Bethany's mind, there is nothing more joyful than to share the creative process. Bethany's boyfriend, James, is awed by her process and said she studies properties of glass and applies those principles to non-traditional mediums, the non-traditional medium of sugar, examining many invariants among the two mediums. To me, this type of extension is very scientific and what makes her work unique. Her friend Molly mentioned that Bethany makes yummy cookies and cakes and for some reason likes the color purple a lot.
Please welcome our sugar sculptress, Bethany Haeseler.
I do really like the color purple. I'm glad I didn't have to fit that in. Okay, go. Alright, these first two works are examples of patterning I created in the kiln and then turned into vessels in the hot shop. It's kind of like quilting glass, but more than anything, they're documentations of experiments of material process. I care way more about the process than I care about the result. I'm an escapist. I live in my own little world and daydream about the possibilities of someday. I enjoy creating worlds within worlds, and I've always been on a search for the perfect safe place. I would create these spaces. I would imagine myself between these layers of glass. And all I ever wanted to do is be inside of these objects and feel the space wrapped around me. This particular piece is based on a peanut. The peanut is like a relationship where two people grow side by side but can never truly be together. It's a reminder of what I made space for, what's now gone and never could really be had. And the crevice is like, the place in my bed where he slept and now it's still there. So, but glass is like my mistress. I'm in love with it, frequently seduced by it, but I am no means exclusive to it. These pieces are beautiful and the process was enjoyable, but I wasn't able to fully express myself with these materials. My material choices are fluid and ever-changing, but as a constant, I focus on an experience with the body. So when it came to time to complete my thesis exhibition, my mistress and I took a little break so I could focus on the task at hand. My work shifted towards installation, performance, and adornment, and my body became part of the sculpture. Like many artists, I find myself enamored by the female body, and in my eyes, its beauty is remarkable and unsurpassed. It's perfect. But with a history of an eating disorder that plagued me for many years, I struggled with a love-hate relationship with my body. It's important to mention that my work is not a celebration of perfection, but instead it's an exposure of deception and lies. It's a battle with an eating disorder. This intentional destruction of my own body is a contradiction to the beauty and perfection that I see in the female form. I began to explore my own faulty logic that I once used to justify my decisions regarding my own health. In order to understand the world around me, I've always used art as a means for exploration. I enjoy taking a narrative approach to my work, telling personal stories that influence my concepts. This helps me sort through my thoughts. I allow myself to be vulnerable in my work, exposing my secrets, which I hope in turn will help others to have the courage to seek help. And I'm hungry for the experience. All my life I've had to be reminded to look with their eyes, not with their hands. I disagree with that. If I can't touch something, I don't understand it, and really what's the point in that? I didn't go to school for art so I could stand behind red tape for the rest of my life and be reminded that I'm supposed to not touch art. I began to create interactive works that could directly involve the viewer. A gumball machine is very inviting to both children and adults, and oftentimes before I can even fully install this work in a gallery, I've already earned a few quarters from some eager bystanders. There are two glass panels that are fitted inside of this. It's a digital drawing that's influenced by an advertisement from Peppermint in the 1950s. This drawing kind of pisses me off because it says if you have a 5-calorie mint instead of a cookie, then men will like you more. And even better, I could tally the decisions that people are making when given the option between a fattening, like brightly colored sugary snack or a piece of mannequin skin and sugar. Most people chose the snack. It's cool. And for many years, I substituted hard candy for real food. In the focal piece for my thesis exhibition, I decided to make an entire corset out of hard candy. It would serve as a goal, in the same way that women would buy a dress 2 sizes too small with plans to lose weight for an event. And this corset would be fully consumable, but laced with Epicac, which would make you vomit. I wanted this corset to not only serve as a treat, but also a warning of destructive behavior. Sugar has always been a restricted substance in my life. Growing up, my sisters and I were rarely allowed to have sweets. We were far too hyper for our own good, and sugar only made it worse. That's me, climbing the fence. I was the ringleader. My parents decided the best way to keep us in line to whatever degree possible was to restrict the consumption of sugar. They resolved that they would put their children on leashes. We drank diet soda and had saccharin in our Kool-Aid. And when we did have something with sugar in it, it was cut in half. To further control the amount of sugar we consumed, my father kept the sugar locked in a cabinet, but I had skinny arms, so it worked. Secretly, I'm a scientist. My sketchbooks are always filled with more words than drawings, and it's all documentation of my experiments with material. In order to work with sugar, I modified traditional glass forming techniques and adapted them not only for lower temperatures, but to also become food safe, because you're supposed to eat this. I obtained a mannequin who had the same dimensions as me. I made a paper model of the corset and then sized it to my body. And then I cut the parts out of acrylic sheet and finally used a food-safe silicone to create molds that I would cast the hot sugar into. I reheated the parts and slumped them over the mannequin. Soon. The corset was more fragile than I ever realized. If I would put it down incorrectly, it would shatter. I had to heat the sugar precisely to 300 degrees, hard crack stage, otherwise it would bend. I used hard candy sticks with colorful swirls to accent the corset and edible gold spray paint to create stenciled designs. The sugar moved just like glass did, but under lower temperatures. It was amazing. It was natural in a fluid transition, and the permanence of glass was gone. Suddenly, my work had an expiration date. One of the things I love about glass is I can bury it, and 1,000 years from now it looks the same. This, not so much. And after years of gazing inside of my tiny little worlds, I decided it was time to stop being on the outside looking in. I built a freestanding room with a chandelier and columns in the wall. It was another challenge, and I'd never made anything so big, and with careful planning it all came together perfectly. My friend says to me after this, "Congratulations, you're a sculptor now." I'm like, cool. And at a glance, my corset looks to be made out of glass, and it would have been easier to make it out of glass, but it wouldn't have the same experience I wanted. People could walk inside the room and touch the sticky sweet surface. I guess they could lick it if they wanted to, but I'm kind of glad they didn't because no one reported getting sick. And I took down my exhibition on a sunny day. My way back to the studio, I ran a few errands, and I left the corset in the car. I finally made it back to the studio and discovered the heat had caused it to slump beyond a point of repair. But I was okay with it. It solved the question about how I would be able to show the work again. And the answer is not in the flesh, but in the process.